Superstorm Sandy devastated hundreds of churches, synagogues, and mosques in New Jersey and New York. Months after the devastation, many are still struggling to recover, and it appears they won't be getting any help from FEMA, at least not for now. Policy prohibits the agency from giving an outright grant because of concerns over separation of church and state, but that had been overridden in previous cases. Earlier this week, I sat down with legal counsel for the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, Daniel Blomberg, to talk about the fight to get funding for those devastated congregations. So, Daniel, this is an issue for primarily houses of worship right now. They're not getting aid. Why aren't they getting the aid?
Because FEMA has decided that the Establishment Clause gives them a license to discriminate against churches, synagogues, mosques, and they're wrong. They're just wrong, and they've been wrong for a long time. So it's about time we get that fixed. Now,
there's an effort on the Hill to close this issue up so that those houses of worship can get the funding they need. They were devastated like many other places. I mean, zoos, museums, other places we know are getting funds, but specifically if there's any religious tie, there seems to be a blockade there. What's happening on the Hill?
Well, Representative Chris Smith and Representative Grace Ming co-sponsored a bill in the House that passed with overwhelming support. They put it on the floor, and in 5 days it was two-thirds of the House had agreed to support it and passed, and went to the Senate, where it has now been languishing for over a month. It took a month just to get assigned to a committee, and now it's been sitting in that committee for almost 2 weeks with nothing happening that we know of.
And they're on break currently as it stands. So what do you expect will happen? Has there been a public call for the Senate to take this up? Are you trying to bring more attention to it? What are you hoping?
We're trying to make sure that the Senate understands very clearly that the Constitution is no impediment to passing this law. And in fact, the Constitution encourages the Senate to fix this problem that's been around for too long now.
Yeah, let's talk about this in the past. What has FEMA done with other large-scale disasters and damage to houses of worship?
Well, there have been many times where the federal government has provided support for churches that needed repair. For instance, the Old North Church in Boston, the church that started the midnight ride of Paul Revere with the lanterns, one if by land and two if by sea, and also Ebenezer Baptist in Atlanta, where Martin Luther King Jr. preached. They have all received funding to provide for the repairing needs that they have there. And unfortunately, FEMA's tried to carve out an exception here. They say, well, we're going to allow community centers, for instance, to receive funding, but we won't allow churches, which often act as community centers, to receive funding simply because you're religious. It's the only reason we won't let you get in line to have access to emergency relief.
In the meantime, it's been several months. How are these houses of worship operating at this point?
Well, Temple Israel in Long Beach, New York, was hit by a 14-foot storm surge. And the All Saints Church, which was built in the 1800s by shipbuilders, now has a sinkhole for a sanctuary. And they're having to scramble to repair in the midst of devastation that hit these entire communities. So, of course, things are very difficult.
Well, because I would think that a lot of these houses of worship are actually serving as a place where they want to be serving others, people who are still recovering from Sandy. For a lot of folks, it is the gathering place of their community, and if they can't be there to help others, they can't hold services. How are they faring? Are they having fundraisers? Are they trying other ways to try to put their houses back together?
They are. They're doing a lot of things to try to put their houses back together. And what FEMA says to them is, go get your private insurance, go raise, have a bake sale, but don't come to us. Don't talk to us. And so you have over 200 churches that have been affected by this, that the federal government is saying, we're going to discriminate against you simply because you're religious. That's wrong. That's unconstitutional. It should stop.
You think you'll ultimately prevail?
I do. I think the American people are behind this. I think the Constitution is behind this. And it's received broad and widespread bipartisan support both in the Senate and, as I mentioned earlier, in the House. So, yes, I think this will be successful, and it certainly should be.
As they return back to work, we'll keep an eye on the senators and see what they do with this, and please keep us updated.
Thank you, Shannon. I will.
Thank you.